cloud. So want to welcome everybody tonight. Tonight we have a special guest speaker, Dr. Eric Colgrove. We're going to be talking about pediatrics and food, and I think you'll find it really interesting. We had the session Friday at the Grange, and there were quite a few questions, and we hope you find it fun as we did. Anything new to report in terms of upcoming events and those sorts of things, Scott?
Yeah, see, we got food label reading on Friday, and a week from today would be food label reading, and then the Friday after that, the 28th of February at the Grange is movie night. So hopefully, if you guys can make it to one of the Grange classes, it'd be fun to do the movie, have you there for the movie night. So we're playing the movie. It's Eating for Tomorrow. We'll have some popcorn there, so hopefully some of you guys will show up for that. So that's coming up the next couple weeks.
And a new series of classes is starting up in March.
Yeah, March 21st, we're going to start a new series of classes. It's going to be a 12-week session, and just like this time, we'll do the Friday at the Grange, and then the following Tuesday, repeat that same topic on the Tuesday night, and then we'll be doing our usual things during that 12-week period. We'll have the walk starting back up in May, and then we'll have a cooking demonstration in there. We'll have a grocery store tour led by dietitians. We'll have a potluck at the end. So the potluck will be in June. And we're going to try to have a potluck here before we even start the next series, because our goal is to have a potluck every quarter. And so I'm working on some dates with the Grange, working with Debbie on that to see if we can do one. We have a tentative date for maybe Saturday, the 15th of March, but we got to get confirmation if the Grange is open that day. And so we don't know for sure yet, but that's our goal, is to have a potluck kind of end this last stretch of classes. That's kind of our goal, to have a potluck at the end of each kind of 3-month session of classes. They're a lot of fun. I was getting a lot of people asking about, when are we going to have another potluck?
Okay, anybody in the gallery have any questions briefly before we get started? I'm going to go back to the gallery. Something that's burning on your mind that you need to ask early on here? Doug, go ahead.
Regarding probiotics, they seem like they're either dairy or they're high in sodium. What do you recommend for those?
I personally recommend eating whole plant foods, lots of fruits and vegetables, and avoiding the probiotics unless you have a specific indication for that, which would likely be something like C. difficile that you're having trouble clearing up. But I wouldn't routinely recommend probiotics, because it, populates your colon with species of bacteria that may or may not be normal for you, and it kind of may inhibit the growth of the kind of bacteria that are good for your microbiome. So if you are, I guess, having diarrhea after you've taken antibiotics and you need to do take something, I guess it's sort of catch can. I think probiotics, I don't think they're regulated any more than supplements are. And so we'll see what Scott has to say about this.
Yeah, I have the exact same opinion on that. And then there's even the study that came out that showed that people that took probiotics after they had a course of antibiotics for another indication actually took their gut microbiome longer to get back to its baseline with the probiotic use than just not doing anything, a placebo. They compared it to a placebo, and it was actually not shown to be beneficial. But there are, like Charlie said, there are specific indications where it might be helpful, like the C. diff colitis indication. And then if you really want to dig deep into it, go to Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bulsiewicz. He's a gastroenterologist, and he talks about probiotics, and he still uses them in his practice, but for really specific short periods of time. But like Charlie said too, they're not regulated. You're not really sure what you're getting, if you're actually getting what it says on the label. So your best bet is just to try to eat a wide variety of whole plant foods, eat some fermented foods, get out in nature. All those things are all going to promote a healthy microbiome.
Well, I was eating sauerkraut and kimchi, but then, they have a lot of salt in them,
Right.
so it's okay to occasionally eat those, I guess so.
Yeah, remember, you don't need a whole lot of kimchi or fermented food. There are, like so many bacteria, they're microscopic. And so, if you have good bacteria that your body wants, they're going to, multiply pretty rapidly. If you put a small amount of bacteria on a plate that has food for the bacteria, they multiply pretty rapidly. So don't worry about eating large quantities to fill your colon up. Your body will do that.
Okay, I have a quick follow-up. I harvested some carrots today, and I washed them with a sponge. Is the bacteria on them okay, or should you peel the carrots, or if you eat them raw?
Did you rinse them, or did you just,
I rinsed
do they have
them
a
and
bunch of visible dirt on them, or?
Yeah, there's a bunch of dirt. I rinsed them, and then I ran the rough side of those two-sided sponge over the skin and cleaned it up.
That should be fine. Then you can just eat them.
Just fine.
Yeah, you don't need to peel them or anything. It's actually good. Yeah.
Years ago, I inspected Marshburn Farms. They used to have a facility in LA County, and they washed them, and then they had a chlorine wash solution on them, so they'd have longer shelf life.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about that. I think what I do is I have a kitchen brush and I put a little soap on it and I just put it under room temperature water under the sink and just scrub them really, really good. And
okay.
And if there's any spots that are bigger and brown, like and not so good, then yeah, cut those out. But I don't do anything else.
Thanks for the questions on that. Who's next? Van, do you want to unmute yourself if you have a question?
Hey, Scott. Hey, Charlie.
Hi.
My wife had a course of, he had a lot of extractions and teeth problems. She had about 5 or 6 courses of antibiotics, but I don't think she has diarrhea. Should she not worry about the probiotics?
If she's not having diarrhea, I wouldn't worry at all about it.
Yeah, and maybe about a tablespoon of sauerkraut.
Teaspoon, tablespoon, whatever you want. Teaspoon should be adequate. Half a teaspoon should have plenty of bacteria in there. Anything else? Yeah.
I'm eating the radish sprouts. They're nasty, nasty hot. And I'm going by your 1 cup broccoli sprouts and a 1/4 cup radish sprouts, and I don't want to mix them with a lot of vegetables. And I heard, and I wondered if anybody had heard about radish seeds. I saw one, I only found one on the internet, one study that purported that even ground up seeds were even more effective than the sprouts as far as not neutralizing the sulforaphane, in the broccoli sprouts. And I wondered if anybody had any info about that.
I've never read anything about it.
Yeah. I'd much rather just broccoli sprouts and, whatever amount of seeds that are pulverized. Well, I'm going to look into it more. And if anybody finds out anything about that.
Okay, let us know what you find.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Welcome, Velvet. Nice to see you.
Hi, Charlie. I thought I'd just pop on and see what you guys are talking about. So
Okay, it's
here I
kids.
am. I
It's
was,
It's kids today.
oh, cool. I was working on a project for school and I think I'm procrastinating. So I was like, let me pop in here and see what they're doing.
Okay, good.
It's nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you
Yeah,
guys.
good to see you.
Okay, so Dr. Eric,
Yeah.
fire away, have fun. We're going to learn about kids and families.
Sounds good. Right. Well, I am Eric Colgrove. Done these talks before. I'm a pediatrician and been doing pediatrics for 25 years, and I realized this is not quite the right one. So let me stop sharing, and it's almost right. It's almost right. Yeah, let me just get this off real quick. Range, there we go. I have two talks that look so similar. I must have clicked the wrong one. All right. That's it. And let me share that. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. Well, all right. So, and please, anyone, if you have questions, please stop me at any time. I'd be more than happy to go to questions. So actually, I'd be more happy to do that than talk about prepared stuff. So, but if you, any questions at all, please. There's a lot to think about with raising kids on a healthy diet and keeping them away from the inevitable sickness that they can get. It's not inevitable. We can give them the stuff that they need so that they thrive. So anyways, let me jump back and say I'm Eric Colgrove. I love this job of pediatrics. I've been doing it for 25 years, over 25 years. Basically, there's a couple of reasons why I decided to do pediatrics. One is that I'm a total goofball, and it sort of lets out my inner child. So I love that aspect. It really does keep me in the right direction, because that's what I want to do. I think my adult compatriots aren't so excited about my goofballness all the time. So, also that aspect allows me to connect with kids. I especially love the kind of 4, 5, 6, 7, that age around there where they're easy to be a goofball with and kind of joke around with. For me, it's just I like all the ages, but that's kind of that's a fun one. It's also fun. I think the other fun age I really like is at 4 months, where they're sort of waking up to the world and they're just smiling at everything and wanting to just imbibe everything with their senses, and I just love that. So the other reason I went into pediatrics was because I like to watch the whole development of a child. I like to see them going from this relatively blank slate to to a healthy, happy adult, and that process, being part of that process is just an honor, and I love it. So that's great. The final reason I'd say I went into pediatrics is because it's not adult medicine. The one thing I didn't like about adult medicine was that you've got these people that are on this on a bunch of medicines, and they're kind of on this they basically thrash their bodies for years, and they're on the sick care system treadmill where they just thrash their bodies and on medicines after medicines and get more sick and more medicines, and it just wasn't what I wanted to spend all my time doing. So I went to pediatrics. So, and they have typically much smaller medicine lists, but now I've learned that, hey, I can try to avoid, as they grow older, it's not inevitable that they get sick, that they will actually that actually, age doesn't mean this inevitable march towards sickness and disability. And so I like this idea that
Hey, Eric, you need to unmute yourself. We were muting the room and you got muted. So now unmute yourself.
oh, okay. I don't know where I got muted, but it probably wasn't anything too exciting. All right. So yeah, did I mention that well, let me just go on. One thing I love about kids too is that they're resilient. They can be in difficult situations, especially social situations, environmental challenges, exposed to toxins and all the standard American diet crap, and a whole host of infections, and yet they just bounce back. In fact, I saw a kid a few days ago who I had seen a few weeks before for a pneumonia, and then they had gotten much sicker over the following 2 days. And so I sent them to the hospital. I sent them to Mackenzie Willamette, and they they basically saw that this child was getting sick in front of their eyes and sicker, and stopped breathing, basically couldn't breathe on his own. So they shipped him up to OHSU. So he had respiratory failure and was extremely sick, had like an abscess in his lungs, which is a big pocket of infection. And he was hospitalized for like a good week or so, and then came back and followed up with me. And I was just so impressed. After being out of the hospital after a couple days, I couldn't even tell that he was sick. I mean, he was just absolutely beautiful looking. So, that I doubt that's quite the same situation. I think with adults, you bounce back, but it's not quite so dramatic bounce back to normal just immediately. It just takes a little bit longer for us to recover. So it's just neat to see kids bounce back from all kinds of situations. And one thing I was thinking about was that there is a limit to the resilience, and namely that's time. If you are sick for a long period of time, there's less of a chance that you're going to be able to bounce back quite so well. And I guess the best example of that is myself, just being that I have MS, and I've had it for 25, 30 years. And so I think it would have been reversible had I known what to do at the time. And of course, my doctors didn't know what to do at the time, or they didn't tell me the right things. They really didn't know about lifestyle medicine or anything like that. And so I continued on with my disease. And at this point, it doesn't seem to be reversible. It's still may be. Who knows? I've been doing this for 4 years. The whole food plant-based eating and food is medicine. But it doesn't seem to really be at this point be reversing, and that's just fine. That's not why I go into this a lifestyle medicine and whole food plant-based eating. Really, this is about helping my patients and learning that being a doctor is more than just making diagnoses and handing out prescriptions for medicines. It's all about preventing illness, and that's one of the things I love about pediatrics too. Is that really it's about how do you raise kids to prevent them from whatever it is, running out in the street or eating the wrong foods, or getting some kind of infection that's vaccine preventable. So there's all kinds of things. All right. So anyways, I'm excited you're here. I'm excited to be here with you. So thanks for coming tonight. Let me just move on to that next topic. Okay. So tonight we're talking about feeding kids. And when it comes to feeding kids, I mean, our topmost priority, it's got to be optimizing their growth and development and well-being. And to do that, we think about giving kids 4 things. Adequate calories is one of them, obviously. You can't sort of grow a kid without giving calories. So calories, sufficient nutrients, they got to have nutrients, surrounding them with the right habits and behaviors that will allow them to choose to eat those foods, because you can't force feed kids. You got to sort of give them the right habits so that they actually will take the food and not be super picky eaters and that kind of stuff. And then 4th is we need to raise children with a sense of connection and love. And those last 3 topics are really full topics, and it's in and of themselves. So we could talk all kinds of stuff just about those last 3 things. So there are numerous examples of how adult diseases start in childhood, such as heart disease and asthma, autoimmune disease, even cancers, which typically start a decade or 2 prior to causing obvious problems in the body. I mean, if a doctor comes to you and says, "Oh, you've got cancer," you felt some lump or something, and then the doctor says you've got cancer, it's not like suddenly you've just been stricken with cancer. That cancer has been growing. Those cells have been multiplying for typically, a couple decades. So, but I'm going to show you this video on how diseases start in childhood. Let me get that going. Tell me if you can't. Good work.
It was this landmark study, published in 1953, that radically changed our view about the development of heart disease forever. A series of 300 autopsies performed on U.S. battle casualties of the Korean War. Average age, 22. 22 years old, but 77% of their hearts had gross evidence, meaning visible to the eye evidence of coronary atherosclerosis, hardening of their arteries. Some of them had vessels that were clogged off 90% or more. As an editorial in the Journal of the American Medical Association concluded, this widely cited publication dramatically showed that atherosclerotic changes appear in the coronary arteries years and decades before the age at which coronary heart disease becomes a clinically recognized problem, before symptoms arise. Follow-up studies on the hearts of thousands more soldiers over the subsequent years confirmed their results. How young does it go? Fatty streaks, the first stage of atherosclerosis, was found in the arteries of 100% of kids by age 10. What's accounting for this buildup of plaque even in childhood? In the 80s, we got our first clue, the now famous Bogalusa heart study, looking at autopsies of those dying between the ages of 3 years old to age 26, And the number one risk factor was cholesterol. You could see the stepwise increase in the amount of their arteries covered in fatty streaks as the level of bad cholesterol in the blood increased. As powerful as this was only looking at 30 kids. So they decided to study 3,000. 3,000 accidental death victims, ages 15 through 34. After thousands of autopsies, they were able to produce a scoring system, able to predict advanced atherosclerotic lesions in the coronary arteries of young people. The higher your score, the higher the likelihood you have these lesions growing in your heart. So if you're in your teens, 20s, early 30s, and you smoke, your risk goes up a point. If you have high blood pressure at such a young age, that's 4 points. If you're an obese male, 6 points. But high cholesterol was the worst. If your non-HDL cholesterol, meaning your total cholesterol minus your good cholesterol, is above like 220, that's like 8 times worse than smoking. So let's say you're a young woman with relatively high cholesterol, but you don't smoke, you're not overweight, your blood pressure and blood sugars are fine. At your sweet 16, there's just a few % chance you already have an advanced atherosclerotic lesion in your heart. But if you don't improve your diet, by your 30th birthday, there may be like a 1 in 5 chance you have some serious heart disease. And if you have really high cholesterol, it could be closer to 1 in 3. Bringing your cholesterol down to even just that of a lacto-ovo-vegetarian, and you're down to here. And if you exercise to boost your HDL, you can extrapolate down a little further. So what this shows us is that even in 15 to 19-year-olds, atherosclerosis has begun in a substantial number of individuals, and this observation suggests beginning primary prevention, at least by the late teenage years, to ameliorate every stage of atherosclerosis and to prevent a retard progression to more advanced lesions. You start kids out on a low saturated fat diet, and you may see a significant improvement in their arterial function by 11 years old. Exposure to high serum cholesterol, even in childhood, may accelerate the development of atherosclerosis. Consequently, the long-term prevention of atherosclerosis might be most effective when initiated early in life, as in 7 months of age. Atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, begins in childhood. Remember, by age 10, nearly all kids have fatty streaks, the first stage of the disease. Then the plaques start forming in our 20s, and get worse in our 30s, and then can start killing us off. In our hearts, it's a heart attack. In our brains, it's a stroke. Right? In our extremities, it can mean gangrene. In our aorta, an aneurysm. If there is anyone watching this video that is older than 10 years of age, the choice likely isn't whether or not to eat healthy to prevent heart disease. It's whether or not you want to reverse the heart disease you already have. Ornish and Esselstyn proved you can reverse heart disease with a plant-based diet. But we don't have to wait until our first heart attack to reverse the clogging of our arteries. We can start reversing our heart disease right now. We can start reversing heart disease in our kids tonight.
See, that didn't make sure I can get that right. Now you're seeing the whole computer background, aren't you?
No, we're still seeing your PowerPoint.
Oh, it's not just, it's not the, okay, so it's more than just, it's the PowerPoint. Okay. All right, just making sure. Well, and I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment here. We can see, well, who has questions? Let's talk about, yeah, what thoughts that brings up? Anything else? Anybody think about that? Think about how early heart disease starts. I had a conversation today in clinic about this exact thing, that heart disease really starts in childhood. It really starts early. I'll tell you about that too earlier.
So who has the idea of what we can do tonight for our kids to start the process of reversing heart disease?
I
Anybody?
realized all I can do is educate them and feed them foods at home the best I can.
And what does that feeding entail?
Well, plant-based diet, of course, but all I like, it has been so hard. My 14-year-old son, he just wants to fight me on it. And I've kind of just been like, okay, these are the facts. And then he has to decide what to do with them. But like, it's really difficult to get it through their heads when all their friends are eating everything else. And, you know, so I have decided rather than fight him consistently and give myself like an aneurysm, I am going to just feed him the best diet possible at home. And then he has to make those choices for himself. But what I'm doing is just teaching him and throwing him little tidbits here and there and answering his questions.
Velvet, that's perfect. That's exactly it.
Good.
14, it depends on their age, but basically your kids aren't going to be doing the shopping in the house, right? So you can only, so you have them sort of captive in a sense that you've got the food, you've got the control of the pantry, and don't stock it full of crap, and show them how you eat and how you should eat, and instead of fighting, it's hard even depending on the age, just even just lecturing them it's painful. They
It is.
can be really, really obstinate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm an old lady and I go to see this kid almost every week. And it's usually they're getting ready for dinner, and sometimes they want to offer me something, and I go, no, I'm vegetarian. And they're very educated parents, and the father always says, yeah, this is very good and good for the environment, but my kids need the protein. And I never know what to say, I never know what to say. I perhaps I could say that, where there's a lot of protein in now I know in everything, but in beans and lentils, but I don't feel that confident to say that. So I just leave it alone, kind of, and it's like I don't know. What would you say in a situation like that? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think what you say is that you're right. Kids do need protein. They need they need protein, they need carbohydrates, they need fats, they all do, but we need to give them the right kinds of those. They're called macronutrients, the big three. And they need all. Basically, food isn't those compartments. Nobody eats just protein, they eat food. And so you need to make sure that they understand, okay, we're eating, you eat food, and all foods have protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So all of them do. And I always like to bring up this idea of, well, where do the elephants get their massive muscles from? Do they eat meat? Where do the cows get it from? If we're eating cows, they're getting their protein from somewhere. Those cows are making muscles from somewhere. Are they eating meat to get their protein? No, they're eating grass. And so everything has protein in it. You can use those examples, and then you can say the best forms of protein, the healthiest ones for preventing a lot of the diseases that we have in America, like diabetes and heart disease, the best proteins are the ones that are from plants. So, especially I think about, what you said, the legumes, the beans and lentils, but also whole grains, seeds and nuts. There are wonderful forms of protein that you can get just as much. But again, those aren't proteins; those are foods. So, beans have carbohydrates, they have fats, they have protein. So you can't say it's just a protein. And it's the same with meat too. You get those same things in meat. It's just you don't get, you get a lot of bad stuff along with that meat. You get a lot of this cholesterol and saturated fat, and you get trans fats and all these things that just known to cause what people die of in our country and our world. So that's what I'd say. What would you guys say? Any other thoughts?
That was perfect, Eric.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will try a little harder.
I have a question. Hi. So I was reading something that commercial formulas have, because of the way they're processed, they have these like a lot of advanced glycation products, which kind of shocked me, which are these like cooked sugars, just because I guess the high heat processing. And so like, what do you tell a parent whose kid is eating infant formula, and are there some that are better? These were like the Similac Enfamil kind of. Have you seen this stuff?
No, I've never heard of that. I think that's certainly could be true. We know that kids do fine. Some kids just can't breastfeed, and so they have to formula feed, and they do fine. So whatever it is, I mean, of course, they end up with the standard American diseases, not just the standard American diet. And we don't know, as part of that made worse by the formulas. I have never heard anything about that. So we do know there are other huge benefits, that you do have a decreased incidence of diabetes when you breastfeed. You have increased developmental possibilities. You probably increase IQ. There's a whole bunch of diseases that are actually less likely to happen when you take breast milk. No, not breast milk of a cow. Yeah, Karen. You're muted. There you go.
I had a question about, you were just saying about breast milk, and I was thinking about that in regards to her question. Isn't breast milk one of the lowest in protein? I mean, if you compare it's made for humans. So do I remember correctly that it's one of the lower in protein?
It's only 6% by calories, 6% by calories. Yeah, protein. Yeah, it's absolutely true. So that means the rest of it is fat and carbohydrates. Yeah, it's loaded in fat and carbohydrates, which is obviously what the babies need at that age. There's more, as we age, we need more protein, but here we have this ideal food, very low in protein, even though they're developing muscles and that kind of stuff. But they'll be using muscles more, especially as they get past 1. They typically will start needing more and more protein in their diet as they get older. Yeah.
So I was just doing a Google search on AGEs, advanced glycation end products, and surprised to learn also that the heating process of these infant formulas results in these cancer promoting substances.
Yeah.
I've never read any other articles or anything about it in the journals, but here it's on a Google search anyway. And it was from, let's see, where is it from? It's from, let's see. I don't know. I don't know if it's a National Institute of Health. I don't think so, but it's an AI overview. So maybe that's some fake news story. I don't know. Where did you find, Alice? Here's the National Institute of Health Advanced Glycation End Products may be, this is 2019, maybe striking link between modern diet and health. We're kind of worried about, we don't understand why there's an increase in the colon cancer in younger people. Maybe it's somehow related to formula. Who knows?
Well,
Maybe time will tell.
the one of the possible reasons for the colon cancer was that the high fructose corn syrup and the high levels of sodas are hitting the distal colon and altering the gut microbiome. That's more likely the theory that makes sense to me. The formula thing was where I don't remember where I saw it, but I was really surprised. It seemed like a reasonable source, and I can't remember. You know, I look at so much stuff,
Yeah.
but it was like, oh, that's not a good start for the kids. You know, because these glycation end products are caramelizing us from the inside and sort of aging us internally. But the colon cancer we're starting to see it, you know, around 26-year-olds. And I think, and usually they ate like a heavy McDonald's diet and a lot of soda. So I think in my mind, it's the soda drinking for that. But
All right. Here it says lactose containing formulas are more likely to glycate than formulas with sucrose or maltodextrin.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. I recommend my patients use soy formulas, which are going to have more of the sucrose type stuff than lactose. Not going to have lactose in it. So.
That was another question that I had is if you have plant milks, which plant milks do you recommend?
Well, I recommend soy. I think soy has it's the most protective because it's from the soy plant. So it's going to be protective of prostate and breast cancer. And then also just because if you get like a full unsweetened soy milk, it's going to be more nutritious. It's going to have a little more fat, which is what you want in a growing child. And it's going to have more protein for sure. If you look at almond milks or other nut milks, some of the other milks, certainly the rice milk or something, it's going to have very little protein. So.
And one other question about the milk is, I realized somewhere that they're probably ultra processed food. Is that correct, or what is your feeling about that?
Yeah. I mean, right. Yeah. I don't really recommend that kids drink milk in general.
Gallons of it, but like if they have oats or buckwheat or cereal once in a while.
I think it is they're not getting any nutrition from it, but more of can you use it to make your oatmeal and your chia seed pudding, things like that. That I would choose the soy over the others for kids, especially. But sometimes it is a good way to get extra calcium in them or extra protein. It's good from that perspective. So, if they're basically drinking chocolate, almond chocolate milk around, and they're carrying a sippy cup around the house all day, sipping on this stuff, they're suppressing their appetites for real foods, and that's not good at all. So you want to, you want them to drink it pretty much all at once, and it is a good source of extra calcium. Typically, you got to check your milks to make sure that's true, and they should be drinking it maybe a couple times a day. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Go back to Sharon.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
She mentioned ultra processed. I thought she was asking, is soy milk ultra processed?
Yeah, I mean, so you can make your own, you can ultra process. It's not ultra processed, it's definitely processed. I mean, just tofu itself is quite processed. So, you can make your own almond milk, you can make your own soy milk. All these things are definitely processed because you use a machine to sort of squeeze out the juices from those things, and you're not using the wonderful pulp, and in general, I don't like the idea of juicing things because you're not really getting the full food effect. So what's nice about buying a soy milk or an almond milk, if you do, is that they're gonna add things to it like vitamin C. I mean, like calcium. Yeah. So yeah, if you make it yourself, you're not going to have those nice added things that they do for you, like B12 and calcium. Yeah.
Thanks.
Mhm. All right. Well, jumping back to the last video, what we know now with advances in technology is that actually there's early cholesterol streaking of the aorta even seen prenatally, which is crazy to think about. The studies have shown that streaking is related to the mother's eating and her cholesterol level. So actually her cholesterol level is affecting the future heart disease of the baby. So you think, okay, it's now we're learning it's happening starting in kids. Well, actually, maybe even before that, in the womb, based on what mom is eating. So that is really important. And what mother is exposed to is very important too. And there's a good video I want to show you about that one too. Let me get this going.
A completely plant-based diet is suitable during pregnancy, lactation, infancy, and childhood, a position echoed by the oldest and largest association of nutrition professionals in the world. Ask a couple hundred health professionals, though, and as few as 1 in 3 appear to know it. Like any diet during pregnancy, though, it should be well planned, which means consuming large amounts in a wide variety of plant foods from all the plant food groups, including whole grains, legumes like soybeans, regular beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, vegetables, fruits, and nuts and seeds. Make sure to get enough calcium from healthy plant-based sources and sufficient vitamin D from sun or supplements. And critically important, make sure you get a regular, reliable source of vitamin B12. I have a video about B12 in pregnancy and for kids here. The 2 books I recommend for raising plant-based families, published by 2 of my favorite evidence-based dietitians, are Your Complete Vegan Pregnancy by Reed Mengels and Nourish, co-authored by Brenda Davis. What data do we have on the impact of vegan diet on pregnancy outcomes? The vegans had a significantly lower gestational weight gain by about 6 pounds, and lower birth weights, but just by a few hundred grams, both about 7 pounds each within the normal range, with no differences in the rate of preterm birth, nor any significant differences in the umbilical cord blood, B12, folate, or iron marker levels between the study groups, not surprisingly, since the vast majority of both groups were taking prenatal vitamins, as they should. What about the composition of breast milk from those eating vegan or vegetarian diets? The systematic review has shown that all non-vegetarian, vegetarian, and vegan mothers produce breast milk of comparable nutritional value. Even omega-3s? There was no difference in milk DHA composition by diet group, but that's not saying much, since over 80% of study participants had milk concentrations of the long-chain omega-3 DHA below target. I talk about the best way to get pollutant-free sources in a previous video, which we'll link down in the doctor's note on nutritionfacts.org or in the description on YouTube. The meat and egg industries like to scaremonger about choline, but wait, this study was written by someone with no conflicts of interest. Liar! Here's a corrected version. The competing interest section has been updated, and surprise, surprise, the author is a member of a meat industry-funded advisory panel. The truth is, there's just as much choline in the breast milk of vegans as those who eat eggs or meat. There is something egg-free, meat-free mothers may not be passing on as much, though: industrial pollutants, like the banned pesticide DDT and cancer-causing PCBs. The highest levels were found in the milk of fish eaters, and the lowest levels found in vegetarians. Even just cutting out meat may cut DDT stores in half. For example, here's the level of pesticides and carcinogenic PCBs found in the breast milk from two sisters with different dietary habits. The levels of DDT, DDE, a breakdown product of DDT, dieldrin and beta-hexachlorocyclohexane, two other banned pesticides, as well as PCBs, were much lower in the milk fat from the lacto-vegetarian mother than in that from the non-vegetarian sister. That's because these chemicals build up the food chain in animal fat, our fat, as well as any animal fat we eat. What about mothers who eat strictly plant-based? Their milk is even less polluted. For almost every contaminant, there was no overlap in the range of scores, meaning the highest worst vegetarian value was lower than the best lowest value obtained in the U.S. sample. And by vegetarian here they mean women who eliminate all animal products from their diets, including eggs and dairy. The one vegetarian mom who had more than trace amounts in her breast milk had only been veg for less than a year. But for some of these other toxic pollutants, the average vegetarian levels were only 1 to 2% as high as the average levels in the United States. Breast is still best regardless of the dietary pattern of the mother, but nursing infants of vegetarian women whose diets are low on the food chain, in other words plant-based, have the advantage of being exposed to less chemical pollution.
Splash on it. Get it off. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So you can still see that?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, we see how the taste preferences in children are affected by what the mother eats when she's pregnant. So obviously, things definitely affect the baby. And there's all kinds of things. So you're passing on all kinds of pollutants when you're not eating healthy, but also you're passing on this preference for junk foods. If you're eating junk foods, if you're going to actually change the taste bud preferences in the babies later in life, and studies show that that's definitely true. So, has anyone heard that? I don't know if anyone's heard that before, but yeah. All right. So let me back to here. See. Now let's talk about how to feed infants. And basically, we start them off eating between 4 and 6 months. Typically, babies who are breastfed shouldn't be on solid foods until they're 6 months. But there's also a period between 4 and 6 months where they are kind of naturally hitting a nadir, a low point in their their blood count, and they can get anemic, and so they don't eat other forms of iron. They get iron from breast milk, but breast milk iron is pretty low, and so it's very absorbable, but it's low. And so, and there's not a lot of other foods that you can give them, but at 4 months, you could give them a little bit of infant cereal that's actually fortified with iron. So those like rice cereal and oat cereal, that kind of stuff. Those are fine to give at 4 months of age. But typically when you're doing actual giving them food, thicker foods, especially ones that they can handle, it's at 6 months. You don't want to give them any kind of finger foods less than 6 months. They should be sitting up, they should be interested, they should be handling the food okay. I wanted to give you a taste for this, what baby-led weaning kind of looks like. And so let me play this for you. This is a really good video of what it looks like, because in the United States, it's all about pushing a spoon into the baby's mouth and giving them pureed foods. But in England, they much more give foods that the children can actually grab onto and eat themselves. And I think it's a good idea. But let me go ahead and show you this video. It might start with an ad, so I apologize.
Check-in time is 3.
It's 2:55.
I know.
Is this what he's doing?
Well, that's an interesting one. So let me stop sharing for a second. All right, so that scene where there's some gagging going on kind of freaks people out even before they see the gagging. They're like, well, you can't do that, they're going to choke. Well, this is how kids will learn to protect their airway, is that they actually they gag and they learn about how to swallow without, and gagging is a really good a good learning thing for their body. So we don't want to totally prevent these. And now for generations, decades, we've done this protecting kids from even gagging, but gagging is not at all bad. Any thoughts about that when you saw that? What did you guys think of?
Alice here. So my grandkids, I have two grandkids. One's 3 and one's 3.5 and 18 months. So they're 2 years apart. And they did baby led weaning, but I was doing back blows when they gagged. That gagging was over the top for me. And I was definitely, popping them on the back when they did that kind of thing. And yeah, I didn't let it go that far.
Yeah.
Maybe I missed the boat. I don't know.
Well, I think you have to be careful in that situation because you can actually cause them to inhale the food, and it's actually more dangerous to sort of stop their natural gagging process. So that's not a choking process. It's different from choking. Choking, you would want to bang on the back, but for gagging, you definitely don't want to get bang them on the back. It can be actually dangerous. So be careful of that. One of the things I like about baby-led weaning is it gives kids a sense of autonomy and exploration. That is a wonderful thing. Instead of just kind of having the spoon going at you, you can put a few things in front of your child and they can decide which things to eat, when to eat it, and when to stop eating it, and which order they want to do it. The kids don't have that when they're doing traditional feeding with spoon feeding with purees. And also the other thing I really think about is that they don't build any of their own satiety cues when they're being spoon fed. Sometimes when you're doing just spoon feeding, the child will pull away and just like not look interested, and so that child's full. But their satiety cues are built much better when they are actually feeding themselves. They know they're smarter than you or me about how much when they're going to be full, and so they can decide very quickly when to eat and when not to eat. It's your job to put the healthy foods out there that are non-chokeable, and it's their job to eat those things. So non-chokeable are you think I was kind of raised thinking that things like carrots, you could never feed a 6-month-old things like carrots. Well, it turns out if you cook it, you can make any of these foods and you can make it soft enough and they can actually manipulate it and with their hands and with their mouth. And so even, like like the chunks of broccoli and oh gosh, I still like the idea of them being able to grab onto it. So it's kind of finger shape, a wedge shape or something they can grab onto. But yeah, here they even showed like, eating a strawberry and that kind of stuff, which kids, they do well with. I've had a lot of patients that baby-led weaning, and there have been studies looking at choking episodes and versus traditional feeding and baby-led weaning, and there was no difference, at least in one study that I saw. And baby-led weaning choking episodes, there was not any more at all. So it was good. Any other thoughts?
I'm just gonna say that gagging caught my attention. Like I'm working on a project and just listening in, and I was like, "What? Why is that baby choking? Like not choking, but gagging?"
Yeah.
And I probably would have like stopped and like picked up the baby, but my kids are raised so long ago that I just feel like I miss some of these things that are happening now.
Yeah, we all did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me share this again. Yeah. Switch gears and talk about a recipe I have that you probably really don't want. That'd be a recipe for picky eaters. And it's the bane of my work because my clinic is just filled with kids who are picky eaters. And I just think that picky eaters is a tough thing. It's something, if you're not paying attention, your kid will become a picky eater very quickly. They won't develop the skill of eating a variety of foods and eating with the family, and that's an important skill to have. That problem can persist into much later age, but so here, this slide highlights the three main reasons that you can become pickier. One is that you're repeatedly exposed to processed foods in the first couple of years of life, and we know that processed foods are much more stimulating to the brain. Those, sugary, fried, greasy foods are just hyper stimulating, and I'll talk about that in a second. Second is that kids are catered to too much when it comes to meal times. So catering to their every desire, that they make a complaint and better cook another meal for little Johnny or Sally, when they were eating with the family, and you want them to get used to eating with the family, not being catered to, not being a what's the word? Order. What is it called?
Short order cook.
Shorter cook. There we go. Thank you. I blanked on shorter cook. That's it. And then the final reason is a thing you can do to make a picky eater is, as an adult, be picky yourself. So we see that a lot, that parents are not eating vegetables, and so, hey, their kids are not going to eat vegetables. So those are the ways that we see kids are made to not have the skill of eating normally, eating a variety of foods and eating with the family. But we know that the junk foods, the processed foods, stimulate the dopamine receptors much more, and real foods just don't do that. They can't compete with that stimulation of the brain. Basically, these processed foods get absorbed way too rapidly, and basically all the natural sugars that are coming off that food, that the energy from that food is going straight to the brain and stimulating the dopamine receptors much faster, and that makes our brains happy, because that's what our brains were looking for, millions of years ago when we're evolving, as to survive. We would want lots of very quick, easy, abundant calories. So, but even your taste buds are very smart, right? They know how concentrated and how much this is going to stimulate your brain. Your taste buds literally are that smart. They can tell, and it was okay millions of years ago, but now it's not good. It leads to overstimulation of your brain, and it's what one of the psychologists, the whole food plant-based psychologist Doug Lau, calls supernormal stimuli. That these fake foods, these processed foods, are super normal. They're above normal. They're stimulating our brains more than normal, and those foods we're gonna gravitate to those foods that most stimulates our brains and keeps us alive. So finding the densest foods helps keep us alive back millions of years ago. but he also uses this wonderful analogy about moths and basically that light has man-made light has hijacked the normal evolutionary behavior, because if there's no light, basically moths are flying towards the stars and the moon, and it's the brightest things in the sky. But suddenly you turn on a porch light and they fly right to it, and they keep banging into that porch light until they're dead. And a very similar thing is happening, that our brains are being hijacked by these unnatural foods, these processed foods that we want to keep going back to, and we're basically like that moth banging into a light. We're killing ourselves. So the other survival set of genes that are being selected for are the ones that help store the food that we eat. And humans have become very good at storing energy, and that's also one of the reasons why we see lots of obesity, is just the fact that we not only are drawn towards these foods, junky foods, but we just our genetics has really allowed the genes that store food rapidly and very well to flourish. So we see that a lot more, and that's definitely one of the reasons why we see obesity. Some of the things to keep in mind about picky eaters is, well, first of all, that it's not, I try not to call them picky eaters. When I'm in the clinic, it's hard, but I really try to talk about it being a developmental trait. It's actually like a developmental skill that anyone can learn at any age. I mean, I definitely have friends, adults, that there's a ton of adults, and especially men. I don't know why men are like afraid of vegetables for some reason. I don't know what it is. At least all my workmates, I work with a lot of women. They have to talk about their husbands, and none of them eat vegetables. Anything green is not, it's just like what you would hear with kids. I don't know if that's what you guys see at all, but it's something that I've been noticing from my workmates. But you should also be careful with bitter, spicy, and hard foods. I mean, I like to sort of start off with foods that are pretty plain or even a little bitter-ish, like you can even give young kids kale. You can cook kale and give them small amounts of that, chop up pretty good, and have them eat kale. And that's definitely a bitterish kind of food, and maybe that's those kind of things that aren't so sweet and yummy tasting, like fruits. But parents are excited about feeding their kids fruits early on, but I really try to tell them, wait on that, get them some more plain tasting vegetable kind of stuff first. So anyways, it's just be careful that kids can definitely get a little bit more picky with bitter, spicy, and hard foods. So it's one of those things that you kind of have to work on them to get them going on it. And I suggest you have kids really shop and cook with you to help them become less selective of the foods that they will eat. They'll become much more open to eating, especially if they grow their food. If they grow the food, and you can say, well, gee, maybe we should start this process. If let's say you dropped the ball on this, and now you've got a 4-year-old who's picky or something. You want to really get them involved with it, even if it's making a fruit shake, and you have some spinach, and you can put it. You can talk about the nutrients that this spinach leaf is packed with, and you can describe them as like superpowers of the spinach, and how many of these wonderful superpowered spinach leaves you want to put in your shake. And then they can decide how much they want to put in. And then as you go on, as they get used to it and they realize it's not bad, that it's actually giving them some superpower in terms of health, that you can work with them and increase that. They're going to want to put more of it. Oh gosh, it really it's making my body that much healthier. I'm going to put in more of that stuff. So we see that. I really want to get people away from the idea of sneaking it in. I see a lot of people say, well, oh, my kid won't eat any vegetables, but I do get it in their spaghetti sauce or their shake or whatever. But they don't know it. Let's not talk about it. I think that deceptiveness is just not a great way to go about it. I think it's much better to do what I just said. Any thoughts about that? I think we need to prepare dishes that everyone likes. You can respect strong dislikes. It's not ideal, but it is okay for kids to eat fruits and not their veggies. You're not going to be able to force them to eat their veggies. But like I said, try to introduce fruits later in that first year of life and really get them going on veggies so that they won't be rejecting veggies. I think it's good to have like a rule at the table, no whining at the table. And I think that you want to make the table time, food time really enjoyable. You want to make it avoid conversation about eating as much as possible and make the atmosphere pleasant, make it playful, and just don't even talk about food feeding. So and the other thing is that sometimes kids just take a long time to accept food. That at first they might not like it, but that doesn't mean you don't give up on it. If they don't like it, a young child, an infant, you don't say, well, gosh, they didn't like their zucchini, so you're never going to give them zucchini again. Because I've heard that in clinic, and that's not the way it is. Studies show that kids have to have a food sometimes 10 or even 15 times before they develop a taste for it. I mean, if you think about your own coffee drinking experience, it probably wasn't good at first, but after, it's bitter and it's just not really good when you're first trying coffee for most people. Of course, you put a bunch of sugar in it, may be different, a bunch of sugar and milk and that kind of stuff. But it's one of those things you just gotta you gotta try things over and over. Oh, and I have this thing down here that says WWBE. What that is if your child wants fries, you ask them, which would Batman eat, fries or apples? So WWBE is what would Batman eat? And you can couch it in those kind of terms. You can say, well, wait, what do you think that Superman or Batman or Spider-Man would do for his powers? Would fries cut it, or would he have to eat apples? Here is a video on picky eaters. Let me show you that one.
Eating healthy foods is important for your children's growth and development, but it can be downright frustrating to get kids to eat a variety of foods. Here are some tips to help you handle picky eating. How can I help my picky eater explore new foods? Encouraging your toddler's sense of independence is a great way to make him more likely to try new foods. You can. Let him choose a healthy new food at the grocery store. Have him help prepare food in the kitchen. Let him feed himself and give him choices. Offer a healthy option you know he likes and another that's a new taste. Giving your toddler choices about what and how much he eats will make him feel like an independent little person. Things could get messy, but he'll be proud and excited to try something he helped choose or make.
He copies everything I do, so I make sure he sees me eat my veggies.
If she's not into a food, we just keep trying because she goes through phases with stuff. She's like, no, 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 yes.
We keep an eye on how much milk she drinks during the day. If she's had too much, she won't be hungry at mealtime.
What if my child refuses to eat? It's normal for kids to get upset sometimes during meals. If it feels frustrating, you're not alone. So many parents have been there. Here are some approaches you can try. If your child gets upset about food, try to stay calm. The best reaction is no reaction at all. Don't feel pressured to make a second meal. Tell her that this is the meal you've made for the family and she can eat it or not. Trust that if your child is truly hungry, she'll eat. If not, she can wait until the next meal, and that's okay. It's hard to stay firm and be patient, but it's worth it. By being consistent, you'll help your child become a healthy eater.
We try not to push her bargain. He gets more stubborn under pressure.
Her appetite varies from day to day, and she seems to know how much food she needs. So I try not to worry if she eats a little less or skips a meal.
Our pediatrician says it's my job as a parent to offer healthy meals and snacks, and it's my child's job to decide when and how much to eat.
It can take time and effort to get your children eating a variety of healthy foods, but your patience and calm through all the funny faces, messes, and tantrums will set them up for a lifetime of healthy eating. For more information about healthy habits for your children, visit www.healthychildren.org/growinghealthy.
That was a big surprise for a lot of people. I know when I raised my two boys, I have two boys that are 32 and 26 now, and it's like it was always like a battle at the table and things like that. And I just love the quotation that it's my job as a parent's job is to provide the healthy food choices, and it's my child's job to decide how much to eat and when to eat it and how much to eat it, and how much to eat. So yeah, I was doing it all wrong.
Yeah, well, we all did that. We all messed it up, and that's part of being a parent. Got to mess up a bit.
Make them sit at the table and bargaining and all that kind of stuff. It's like would have been so much easier just to okay, it's fine. You don't have to eat. But then you're not gonna, not gonna have bad foods in the house so that because they might not eat the food you prepared because they want to eat the chips or the cookies or something like that. So just not having the bad food around.
Aaron, you have a thought or a question?
My mom, I remembered that my mom was really smart. She used to get us kids to the table, and then she would bring all the vegetables and serve the salad first. And I realized I didn't have to be that way with my daughters because they didn't mind veggies so much. But my 9-year-old grandson, who lives with me, we kind of had to I remembered that my mom used to do that. And I thought she was smart because when you first get a child to the table, if you haven't given them too many snacks, they're hungry. And then they automatically start eating that good stuff. And then she would bring other things a little bit later. And we did eat meat. Actually, my parents, when my brother, who's 9 years older than me, they didn't eat meat for a long time. But by the time I was born, they started eating meat again. And she just, I don't know, she just had this way of working it out. So we wanted to eat. I thought it was brilliant. So I've been doing it again.
Wonderful. Yeah, good. All right, Doug, I didn't see your hand.
My wife, when she sees a child force to eat chili made with kidney beans until she threw up on the dinner table. So when our kids came along, she decided to let them select 3 foods they didn't have to eat. And I don't know if my son did, but and then if they didn't finish their meal, they didn't get dessert. So, and my son would have eaten dog poop, I think, to get his dessert. So that's never a problem. I have a question though. I don't know if there's an answer. My wife is a district school nurse from 1990 to 2010, and there's a dramatic increase of peanut allergies, type 1 diabetes, and diagnosed autism. Is there any accepted theories for either of these three increases?
Boy, I think those are the 3 big unknowns.
Okay.
The whole peanut allergy thing to me is it's a mystery kind of. It's boggling. And actually, I have never subscribed to what the American Academy of Pediatrics said was important to do, which is not to eat nuts in the first year of life. But then studies came out maybe 8-10 years ago saying that it's a good idea. The reason I didn't think it was a good idea when I was going through my training is I had friends who were Indian from the Indian subcontinent and from Thailand, and I mean you got millions and millions of kids who are eating nuts, and that their cultures don't even know what peanut allergy is. I mean, so it was obvious to me that if you expose your child to peanuts early on, it's a good thing, and that's exactly what the studies finally showed. And the AAP changes its tune some, I don't know, 10 years ago about trying to expose kids earlier to nut products and other allergens and that kind of stuff. But the autism's a different question. I think that's still a big unknown. But yes, we are seeing a rise in autism, and it's certainly, we know what it's not. It's not MMR vaccine. It's pretty clear it's nothing to do with vaccines. So all the scare back from the early 2000s got some worldwide studies looking at the correlation, and there was absolutely none. And there's no causal link, no correlation between the vaccines and autism at all. So what was the third one you're talking about?
Well, type 1 diabetes, I think it's, there's a lot of like epigenetics, there's a lot, it's multifactorial, a lot of different things. And with especially with autism, one of the going theories is the glyphosate, which is in Roundup, and just all that, from all these toxins in the environment and stuff are probably playing a role as well. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking too. This sort of toxins, things like just all kinds of toxins. They built up in our system. I mean, you look at gosh, what are the microplastics doing now? All the microplastics that they've found in all of our bodies, all of our brains. Everybody has microplastics in your bodies. How is that good for a developing fetus and baby? Probably not great, but I don't know. There's not enough research to really tell us what's causing that, what's causing autism, or what microplastics are causing. I don't even know of any diseases that it can cause.
So we're kind of at an hour and a half now, and do you have any closing kind of summation or any last questions from anybody that we can kind of wrap this up?
it's great. I know we could talk a long time about all this stuff, but I think you hit some of the things that were really interesting, key things. And I don't know if anyone else has any questions, comments.
Yeah, Karen has a quick question there before we wrap up.
Yeah, I was curious. You had talked about 2 books earlier. Were those for pregnant women or were they about feeding children?
Feeding children. Yeah.
Okay, what were they called
They
again?
One
Nourish?
is called Nourish. Yeah, Nourish. And the other one is yeah, it was on the video. I can't remember which one that was. But Nourish is a good place to start. It does talk about what to eat in prenatally too. When you're pregnant, it does talk about that. So that's important. But one of the final thing I wanted to say was that just I just can't imagine what it's going to be like when our kids who have grown up, kids that are actually a large proportion of kids have grown up and they're not shackled to this idea that disease and age are associated as an inevitable thing. They're basically we're going to have at some point we're going to have our kids are our future. We're going to have this time where kids are not going to automatically develop heart disease and diabetes and strokes and that kind of stuff because they have avoided it, and I'm excited about that. If we can make that come, it's going to happen at some point. It's just a matter of how long do we want to wait before that happens to our society, where we are not spending billions and billions of dollars on diabetes and sick people and yeah, I think it's amazing. There's all kinds. It's not just diabetes, but autoimmune diseases and strokes and that kind of stuff. Yeah, Karen, you had one more thought?
Yeah, I have one more question. I have a grandson that's 6 and he's had repeated, I think he's had 14 ear infections now and a lot of antibiotics. So the more that he would eat plants, then the better his microbiome would get, because isn't it the amoxicillin? Does that really mess up your tummy too?
Yeah, it does to some degree, but yeah, we see a better immune system, fewer colds and shorter colds, and it's really when you hold on to your cold and you have more mucus that goes back up in your eustachian tube that brews the ear infection. So eating plants are going to help you sort of get over those viruses quicker, and you're going to less likely develop into an ear infection. So that's how that works. Yeah.
I'm encouraging them.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you so much for the questions and for this discussion tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What is next?
Dr. Colgrove?
Yeah, what is next week? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for participating. What's next week, Charlie?
It is food label reading.
Oh, food label.
Sean's going to do it. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That'll be good. That'll be really good. I'll be there for that for sure.
Thank
right.
you.
Take care.
you guys.
Thanks, Eric. Good
Have
job.
a good night.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right.